With regard to maintaining quality standards, I wish to point out that according to the WHO, quality assurance is a wide-ranging concept covering all matters that individually or collectively influence the quality of a product. Concerning pharmaceuticals, quality assurance can be divided into major areas, including quality control, production, and distribution. These three factors have been assessed in the case of procurement made during the sanitary curfew. For each item procured, my ministry ascertains that all manufacturers of medicines supplied are duly registered with the Indian Central Drugs Control Organization, CDSCO, which is the national regulatory authority for pharmaceutical products in India. Mr. Speaker, sir, in June 2020, I placed in the library of the National Assembly a complete list of all manufacturers whose GMP, Good Manufacturing Practice, has been approved by the CDSCO of India. Allow me to point out that the GMP is a system aiming to ensure that medicines are constantly produced and controlled in accordance with quality standards applicable and covers all aspects of production. Mr. Speaker, sir, the medicines we purchased were sourced from the Indian market, which confirms that these medicines met all the quality criteria applicable. In Mauritius, we have our own monitoring mechanism, which is the National Pharmacovigilance Committee. This committee assesses all issues pertaining to the detection and the assessment of any adverse reaction to drugs. This committee also ascertains that therapeutic efficiency of the product. As at date, the Pharmacovigilance Committee has not flagged any concerns concerning the medicine supplied. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the report of the Director of Audit on Pharmaceutical Products, the National Audit Office, in its summary of findings, highlighted that A, the Ministry of Health Board displayed poor information management skills regarding medical products, people, and establishment, which is mandated to regulate and license. However, I wish to point out that with regard to persons working in pharmacies, each licensee, when not himself a pharmacist, should employ the pharmacist in accordance with the Pharmacy Act. Records of all licensees are available at the Pharmacy Board. All licensed pharmacies, in addition to the pharmacist, employ other persons as salespersons. There is no obligation for the pharmacy to keep records of these persons. Section 18.1 and Section 18.9 of the Pharmacy Act allows pharmacies to operate. B, the existing legal provisions to regulate all aspects of medical products were complex, fragmented, and in some cases outdated, resulting in regulatory gaps. Section 18.1 of the Pharmacy Act stipulates that no person shall operate a pharmacy unless A, he holds a license, B, there is a pharmacist in charge of the pharmacy. Section 18.9 of the same Act stipulates that no person in a pharmacy other than a pharmacist shall dispense a prescription, compound a medicine, or sell a drug specified in the 1st and 6th schedule. It follows that the database of persons handling dangerous drugs is the same as the database of pharmacists. C, several legal provisions were inadequately implemented, leading to compliance failures and restricted enforcement on behalf of the Ministry of Health and the Board. Several regulatory controls were ineffective and they were not systematically implemented and monitored. In reply to these two observations, I wish to point out.
Mr. here is reading the report, shut up, of the Director of Audit. That is not what I asked him. I asked him what actions he has taken. He has taken no action. He should say no action has been taken, full stop. I'm not asking. The report is here. I have the report. All the members of the Assembly have the report. What is the use of the Minister reading the report?
Do you have anything else to add? You finished? Any question on this side? Any leader of the opposition? So, leader of the opposition, you know very well. You've been an acting prime minister for this country for some time. You know,
Thank you.
have no control over the...
You only have control on me, Mr. Speaker, not on him.
No.
This is not the right way to do it. You have Section 77, Mr. Speaker, which you use very often, which gives you very widening...
No, this is
very
clear. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Section 77 will not apply in its case, because this is clear-cut situation of separation of powers, the legislative and the executive.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm replying as per the PNQ.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I heard the leader of the opposition uttering the word "shut up." May he please withdraw the word?
Then he already withdraw the word.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm replying to the PNQ. I'll give all the details as per the PNQ. Especially, I'm going to give precise reply. At the same time, I'm not going to make a press conference after the PNQ. In reply to these two observations, I wish to point out that registered wholesale pharmacies are authorized to import all drugs listed under the Dangerous Drug Act. Although, as at now, there is no requirement for precursors to be registered, any person involved in the importation of precursors has to obtain a permit from my ministry. My ministry grants such permits based on a predetermined quota. My ministry, in collaboration with the MRA Customs, is proposing...
Leader of the opposition, allow the Honourable
Mr. Speaker, sir,
say
the question is what the ministry has done. My ministry, in collaboration with the MRA, what is being done, is proposing amendments to be made to the Dangerous Drug Act for an online platform for monitoring of precursors and dangerous drugs. These amendments will also make provision for licensing of importers for the precursors. It is to be noted that both the Pharmacy Act and the Dangerous Drug Act make it an offense for persons not duly licensed to dispense dangerous drugs or pharmaceutical products. The integrity issues in regulatory processes were handled by the MOH in a soft and inadequate manner. This needs to have a precise answer for this. At the level of the pharmacy unit, there is a database of medical products which is available. Each medical product is, on every invoice, is entered on the database, whereby we can ascertain if the product is compliant. The MOH, in collaboration with the MRA and the Mauritius Networking Services, has already developed a single window platform in line with the TradeNet services, whereby import permits are granted by the Ministry of Commerce and Consumer Protection as part of the business facilitation strategy of the government, where all importers will have to input data regarding type and quantity of product to be imported. This information was already imparted to the National Audit officers. Mr. Speaker, sir, in respect to the report of the National Audit Office pertaining to the COVID-19 related expenditure, I wish to highlight the following facts. The COVID-19 pandemic was and still is a unique and unprecedented phenomenon which not only disrupted economies, but also threatened the very existence of the normal social fabric. International borders were closed, supply chains were disrupted, industries were closed down due to unavailability of raw materials or manpower. Several countries, particularly the developed ones, started a panic buying spree for hoarding medical supplies and equipment. Countries where there is mass production of medical supplies, such as China, India, put embargo on the export of these materials. My ministry had already started working on a preparedness plan well before the announcement of the pandemic by the WHO. As part of this preparedness plan, my ministry started procuring materials and equipment that would eventually be required in case there was an outbreak in Mauritius. Several procurement exercises were initiated and orders were placed on several suppliers. Unfortunately, many suppliers defaulted due to the non-availability of the products or unavailability of transportation means. I have to repeat it. Unfortunately, many suppliers defaulted due to non-availability of the products or unavailability of transportation means. Following the first cases of local cases of COVID-19 and the lockdown as from 20th March 2020, the situation worsened. My officers of my ministry continued to provide their services in order to ensure, among others, that frontliners are had adequate protective equipment and materials. Health services had a regular supply of medicine and other medical supplies. Information and feedback was provided to the high-level committee on COVID-19, set up under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister to take timely policy decisions in order to contain the spread of the disease in our Republic. In these circumstances, my ministry followed the procedures laid down in Section 21 of the Public Procurement Act and Directive 44 of the Public Procurement Office. It was a survival momentum. Section 21 of the PPA and Directive 44 issued by the PPO provide guidance for emergency situations in normal urgent circumstances. It is worth noting that Directive 44 was issued on 19th March 2020, that is, before the announcement of the lockdown. There has been no directive or other guidelines issued after the lockdown for procurement in a lockdown period. Since the very beginning, a committee comprising consultants in charge of various specialties was set up under the chairmanship of the Director of Health Services, responsible.
Total mockery. The minister is, in fact, the total.
Just wait. Wait a minute. Please. Yeah. I have no control either. Next, Prime Minister's question time.
B640. B640, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, since 2020, the world has been struck by the COVID-19 virus, sparing no single country. Millions of persons have lost their lives as a consequence of the pandemic, which is still present. Countries around the world have left no stone unturned to fight this deadly and invisible virus. As the House is aware, as soon as the first case of COVID-19 was detected in Mauritius on Wednesday, 18th March 2020, a sanitary confinement was imposed as from Sunday, 22nd of March 2020, by virtue of Regulation 14.1 of the Prevention and Mitigation of Infectious Disease Coronavirus Regulations 2020. The curfew order, inter alia, provided that no person shall remain outdoors as from 2000 hours on Monday, 23rd of March 2020 to Tuesday, 2nd of April 2020 at 2000 hours, with the exception of the following classes of persons for the purpose of leaving their place of residence to proceed to their place of work and back. A. Judicial officers in respect of such minimum judicial services as the Chief Justice deems essential, and such employees of the public sector, including ministries and government departments, public enterprises and statutory bodies providing essential services to the public as may be designated by the head of public bodies concerned. And B, employees of the private sector providing strictly essential minimum services. Subsequent curfew orders were issued to extend the curfew period. The orders issued also provided for the Commissioner of Police to issue permits, commonly known as work access permits, to persons on such terms and conditions as he may impose, where he is satisfied that the presence of such persons at their place of work is essential for the provision of minimum services. The objective of issuing the permits was to enable employees to attend their respective sites of work, to carry out essential economic activities, to ensure that the population at large obtains the minimum services and basic necessities, such as food, utilities, and medical services, to enable them to sustain their livelihood during the confinement period. The Prevention and Mitigation of Infectious Disease Coronavirus Regulations 2020 were amended on 26 April 2020 to also allow movement of a person who has to avail himself of medical treatment or procure essential supplies, foodstuff, medicines, or any other item essential for his or his family's subsistence or livelihood, b. a judge or magistrate for the purpose of attending court, c. a barrister or an attorney whose services have been retained by a person to attend a police station, place of detention, or court, d. a medical practitioner for the purpose of attending a hospital, private medical institution, or patient in need of urgent medical care, e. a pharmacist for the purpose of attending his place of work. An online platform, besafemaurice.mu, was developed in collaboration with Mauritius Telecom and the Mauritius Police Force for the receipt of applications from public, private sectors, and private individuals, and the issue of WAPs to them, with a view to enabling them to travel from their place of residence to their place of work and back. The national confinement period lasted up to Monday, 1st of June 2020, and thereafter we resumed a relatively normal living, the new normal, with strict sanitary protocols still in place. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the House is also aware, on Tuesday, 9th of March 2021, a temporary restrictions of movement order was issued by virtue of Section 3(1)(b) of the Quarantine Act 2020, following detection of new COVID-19 cases locally, preventing persons to remain outdoors in Mauritius as from 600 hours on Wednesday, 10th March 2021 to 2000 hours on Thursday, 25th of March 2021, except for a. employees of the public and private sector organizations providing essential services, b. employees of the discipline forces, c. a person who has to avail himself of medical treatment or procure medicine or any other item essential for his or his family's subsistence or livelihood, d. a judge or magistrate for the purpose of attending court in respect of minimum judicial services as the Chief Justice deems essential, and employees of courts as may be designated by the Chief Justice. E. a barrister or an attorney whose services have been retained by a person to attend police station, place of detention, or court. F. medical practitioner for the purpose of attending a hospital, private medical institution, or patient in need of urgent medical care. G. a pharmacist or his employees for the purpose of attending their place of work, and H, employees of quarantine facilities, petrol service stations, port and airport and related businesses, cleaning and scavenging services, and security services. Thus, the website BeSafeMaurice.mu was reactivated on Wednesday, 10th of March 2021, where applications for WAP could be submitted online. The Mauritius Police Force issued 2 communiques dated Wednesday 10th and Thursday 11th of March 2021 to inform the public of the procedures for the application of WAP. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the second wave of the pandemic, certain clusters were identified where several persons were tested positive for COVID-19 in one specific geographical area. In order to contain the spread of the virus, the geographical area in and around the towns and villages situated within the constituencies number 15 of Lacavéan and Phoenix, number 16 of Bakwa and Floréal, and number 17 of Cupip and Midlands were declared as red zones on Thursday, 11th of March 2021, in accordance with Government Notice number 471 of 2021. A red zone is a geographically demarcated area where incidence of cases of a contagious disease is high. To allow certain classes of persons to enter and leave red zones, the issue of a special WAP was implemented, and these persons were eligible to apply for a special WAP through the BeSafeMaurice.mu platform, provided they were holders of a normal WAP and their trade or services were within the sectors predefined in accordance with the communiques of the Mauritius Police Force. Strict minimum of special WAP were issued and internal arrangements were made regarding many services. As at date, clusters other than those I have mentioned were identified and declared as red zones, while some regions previously in the red zone were no longer classified as red zones as the situation improved, and they no longer met the criteria for the red zones, and that all the tests carried out for the inhabitants after 14 days of the confinement were negative. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards Part A of the question, I am informed that out of 104,974 applications, 59,457 special WAP and free special permits were granted. With regard to Part B of the question, the criteria used for the issue of special WAPs are: A, for public officers residing in red zones and working outside the red zones, who are working in essential services, performing vital and strategic activities, and those residing outside the red zone and working in red zones, who are engaged in essential services or performing vital and strategic activities as approved by their supervising officers. B, for private sector, employees residing within and outside red zones, performing vital and strategic activities in an organization as defined by the police communiqué of Wednesday 10th and Thursday 11th of March 2021. A validation committee was set up at the level of my office, comprising, amongst others, representatives of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, the Mauritius Police Force, and representatives of the private sector for validation of applications. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must remind the House and the population that the fight against COVID-19 is not over. Presently, there are specific and localized areas which are still under red zone restrictions, and they are strictly monitored by the Mauritius Police Force. To date, 25,100 contraventions have been established in breach of specific regulations. To contain the spread of the pandemic, we have embarked on a nationwide vaccination campaign, which started on the 8th of March 2021, and which aims at vaccinating 60% of our adult population by September 2021. We have been able to procure enough vaccines to that effect, and to date, 600,000 people have had their first dose. I am therefore urging the population to strictly adhere to the sanitary protocols in place in order to avoid the spread of COVID-19, and appeal to all those who have not yet been vaccinated to avail themselves of the national vaccination program, which is being deployed all around the island. Mr. Speaker, sir, we cannot afford to shut down our country for socio-economic reasons. With the positive outcome of the vaccination program, my government has opened up certain activities and allowed free movement of people as from Thursday, 1st of July 2021, subject to sanitary protocol being observed. As from Thursday, 15th of July 2021, we are also opening our borders under strict conditions, and as from October 2021, foreigners will be able to come to Mauritius under certain conditions which are presently being finalized. Mr. Speaker, sir, I seize this opportunity to thank our frontliners for their remarkable work and all those people who are strictly adhering to the sanitary measures put in place for their safety. Unfortunately, there are some irresponsible people who, by flouting those measures, are putting their lives and those of our citizens at risk. In fact, we are witnessing an increase in positive cases daily because they have not been adhering to protocol put in place. I make a pressing appeal for understanding, responsibility, and solidarity to prevail at all levels. Let us act as true patriots in our collective interest and the interest of our children and future generations. Thank you.
Because, sir, my question is very specific. It relates to special work access permit for red zone. I know from the Honourable Prime Minister if consideration will be given for granting special work access permit for the red zone, for people who is going to transport cattle and slaughter cattle for the Kurbani, which is going to be held next week.
Well, we are already looking into that, and there are a few I must say, factors that we have to take into consideration. Mainly, of course, the fact that we don't want people to expose themselves in order that the risk of contamination is great, because as it is in the red zone, we already have a number of positive cases. We will obviously see whether through screening that is being done, massive screening, whether we are going to have other cases. But if not, we have to take that into consideration. We have to take into consideration under what kind of protocol we are going to allow people to go in order to place, some of them, they need to place an order to buy the cattle. The way, in what condition the cattle has to be eventually, at the time when it is required, to be transported from the, what you call the feedlot, if I can say so, to the place where the cattle is going to be slaughtered. So this is being looked into. I can assure the Honourable Member that we are actually working on the different conditions that will be imposed in order to allow, of course, those who have bought their cattle to be able to perform their religious rites also on that very day.
In my constituency, there was a region which was declared red zone, and we have seen all the practical problems which inhabitants suffer when there is a red zone. So may I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, being given he's also the head of the high-powered committee, to consider giving sufficient warning, sufficient time to residents of red zone so that they can, do whatever urgent business they have to do before they are completely locked down in that red zone.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, when we detect number of cases of people who are contaminated, and when all the criteria that have been laid down, although they are flexible criteria, warrant that we take a decision to impose a red zone in a region. We can't wait. We can't allow and give time for the virus to spread any further. And that is the reason why, first of all, we must act immediately, fast. And I see that this object of acting fast is going to be defeated if we then tell people, look, this region now is going to be a red zone in the future, and we give time. Then there is going to be, obviously, more movement of people, which the very purpose of declaring a red zone is to try to restrict as much as possible movement of people so that the risk also is limited. So that, I'm very sorry that we do not see, we do not have the same reasoning, and we differ, at least, on this issue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. My question already answered by the Prime Minister. I want to thank the Prime Minister for giving due consideration for the consideration of a special work access permit for the transportation of cattle.
I said it is being worked out. So we are looking at it, I must say, we are looking at it favorably. So
yes, it's the same issue that I want to address, Mr. Speaker. And again, the question is being addressed, and we thank the Prime Minister for his reply, because there are so much apprehension on this issue. My request to the Honourable Prime Minister is that to at least allow 2-3 days on whatever decisions are taken, so that people can take necessary measures and precautions so that to celebrate this festival. So my request to the Prime Minister, if we can communicate this at least 2-3 days before the festival. Thank you.
In fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, what we are doing now is to gather all the information with regard to the people who are concerned, so that we can see what arrangement can be made for these people, because I know that, for example, in the red zone of Plaine-Verte and Cité Martial, which is also Vallée-des-Prêtres, yes, which are mainly concerned. So we are getting all the data with regard to those people, and we are working out as I said, the arrangements that can be made so that it is safe, not only for them, but for everybody else, so that they can get, but I must say that I also appeal to the collaboration, to the cooperation of people, the understanding of people. We can't be doing what has been done in the past, where so many people gather whenever the animal is being brought to a place. And I rely also on the honourable members also to sensitize people in the constituencies so that we take maximum precaution.
Last question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister state the reason why residents of Tutracourt have to apply for a permit although they are not in a red zone?
Yes, well, this we have because of a practical, I must say, the practical problem. In fact, when cases were detected, they were mainly in Vallée des Prêtres, lower part of Vallée des Prêtres. But of course, we declared that part to be a red zone. But the problem is that there's only one road that leads to Chitrakoot. And so people from Chitrakoot would have to take that road in order to move out or to go wherever they need to go. So that is the reason why they had to apply for a work access permit. They have been granted, I am aware, but the special condition, the condition is that they cannot stop in the red zone. They have to just move on, and therefore that's why they have to apply. There's no other way to go out or to move around Vallée des Prêtres.
B641, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Passport and Immigration Office that entry of foreigners in Mauritius is permitted pursuant to relevant provisions of the Immigration Act, the Passports Act, and the Passports Regulations. Foreigners are thus permitted to enter the country on the strength of residence permits, of occupation permits, or of visas issued to them. According to records kept at the Passport and Immigration Office, the number of foreigners who are overstaying in Mauritius is as follows: 585 foreigners whose tourist business visas have expired, and 2,294 missing expatriate workers. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards the second part of the question, I'm further informed by the Passport and Immigration Office that the following actions are being taken to trace overstaying foreigners. A dedicated team of officers known as the Tracing and Tracking Team mounts crackdown operations as and when required at different places simultaneously. To conduct these operations, the Passport and Immigration Office is supported by various units and branches of the police force, such as the Special Supporting Unit, Emergency Response Service, the Field Intelligence Office, the Central Investigation Division, and the Groupement d'intervention de la police mauricienne. And B, the intelligence cell of the Passport and Immigration Office carries out necessary verification with a view to confirming the information provided by foreigners, their disembarkation cards. The cell peruses the disembarkation cards and verifies the information given by foreigners on their arrival, tracks the movement of irregular visitors, and assists the tracing and tracking team to conduct crackdown operations. Appropriate actions are then taken to arrest and repatriate the concerned foreigners. Mr. Speaker, sir, foreigners who have stayed illegally in the country are served with a notification of illegal stay while leaving the country, and they are informed that they should not undertake any travel to Mauritius without prior authority from the Passport and Immigration Office. Their names are added to the controversial list of the Passport and Immigration Office.
Yes. Can the Honourable Prime Minister provide information as to the time frame that those 2,294 missing workers are in Mauritius and have not yet been tracked?
Time frame?
Years or month, whether these people are just roaming around in Mauritius.
Well, that information I will have to ask the police to compile, and then I can provide to the House, yes.
Is the Honourable Prime Minister aware that there are organized groups that are using and exploiting those illegal workers in Mauritius to the detriment of Mauritian workers, especially those who want to meet both ends doing some part-time jobs? Those people are being exploited by those organized groups. Is the Prime Minister aware of that situation?
In fact, I answered PNQ of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, whereby I did mention that there are some cases where there are unscrupulous employers who have taken advantage of a situation to employ some of those expatriate workers without, of course, the proper permits and without abiding to the law. And yes, unfortunately, we have had a few cases. In fact, I must say, we have had a few cases where those workers have been sent back to their country. But of course, we need to keep on tracking them, and we need, of course, to take action against those employers also.
And that would be it too.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In his reply, the Prime Minister mentioned that there are 585 tourists with tourist visas have overstayed in the country. Can the Honourable Prime Minister state which nationality has most overstayed?
Well, tourists, I see breakdown of foreigners whose tourist visas have expired. And, well, I must say there are a few nationalities who are the most. There are Nigerians. There are actually 208. Some from Madagascar, 110. Indian also, 83. Ghanaian, 33. And others also.
Is the Honourable Prime Minister aware that the tracking team at the Passport and Immigration Office, they are not properly manned? In fact, there are only some 10 to 15 officers, which is not sufficient to track down all those illegal workers in Mauritius. And what remedial measures will be taken at the level of the Office of the Commissioner of Police to beef up that tracking unit at the Passport and Immigration Office?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. If you look at the tracing and tracking team itself, of course, as the Honourable Member says, it is manned by so many officers. But the tracking, I mean, the team that goes, to try to catch those people who are illegally staying is not restricted to only those officers. I did mention in my answer that there is collaboration of different other units in order to help them to carry out those operations. I mentioned the Special Supporting Unit, the Emergency Response Service, the Central Investigation Division, of which there are other officers that then form part of the team. But what this tracing and tracking team does, first of all, is to be able to get all the information in order to try to locate the person who is illegally staying. And then they do mount operations where, depending, of course, on each case, how many people they will require, from which unit, and assistance of the Commissioner of Police is given in order to carry out those operations.
Time over. The table had been advised that PQ B643, B644, B645, addressed to the Honourable Prime Minister, have been withdrawn. Honorable members, the table had been advised also that PQ B680 will be replied by the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Administrative and Institutional Reforms. PQ B689 will be replied by the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister. PQ B658, PQ B698 have been withdrawn. Also PQ B699, B700 and B701 have been withdrawn. Honourable members, I have to inform the House that the Honourable Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology has informed me that she has to attend to a court case before the Supreme Court this afternoon. She has made a request for questions to be taken out of turn, and I have accepted to her request. I invite honourable members to be brief in the supplementary questions. Moreover, I will, as far as possible, restrict supplementary questions to the mover of the question. Honourable Ganga Prasad.
B646.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the criteria for the obtention of a National Certificate of Education are as follows. Numerical grade 6 in 6 core subjects, including English, French, and maths, and at least intermediate level in 2 non-core subjects. Or numerical grade 6 in 7 core subjects, including English, French, and maths, and at least intermediate level in 1 non-core subject. Or the numerical grade 6 in 8 core subjects, including English, French, and mathematics. Schools have been informed of same by way of a circular in 2020. Mr. Speaker, sir, however, the criteria applied for the promotion to grade 10 for students who sat for the NC assessment this year is at least numerical grade 6 in 6 subjects, including English. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also wish to inform the House that exceptionally for this year, students who were in quarantine or treatment centres and were unable to take the NC assessment in 2020-2021 have been promoted to grade 10.
Honourable Minister, how many students who have been promoted to grade 10 after this change in the criteria of promotion, whereby the students without that numerical grade 6 in French or maths have been able to be promoted in grade 10?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't have this figure, but all students having obtained a numerical grade 6 in French and maths have been able to move on to grade 10.
Minister, I have a case here of a student of Petit Raffray who goes to an SSS in Goodlands, who is from the extended stream, who has been successful in the NC. She has been seeking a seat in grade 10, and she has been refused same by the PSEA and by the Ministry of Education, and she cannot be promoted to grade 10 in the school where she is admitted currently as an extended stream student. Will you look into the matter? And because this child has made a lot of effort in order to succeed her exam.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to know what are the results as a student, because when we set the criteria, that criteria applies to all students.
Respects the criteria laid out.
Honourable Ganga Prasad. You have another supplementary?
B647.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that as at 21st June 2021, out of 2,160 seats allocated at grade 10 in the 12 academies, 1,935 have been filled. Consequently, there are 1,935 vacant seats in regional secondary schools.
Is the Honourable Minister aware that in a few regional secondary schools, at least 50 to 60 students have been transferred to academies, leaving behind vacant seats? Will the ministry be contemplating the idea of filling these vacant seats?
Mr. Speaker, sir, research has shown that the smaller the class size, the greater the teaching and learning effectiveness. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are planning to move on to smaller class sizes, ways a better and enhanced teacher-pupil ratio, and this is why we do not intend to fill up this.
Transfer is in our culture, Honorable Minister, and the schools where we have these 50 or 60 vacant seats are high demand regional secondary schools. And I don't think if we fill the vacant seats, we are going to have a decline in quality of education there.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the very spirit of the reform is that all schools graduate to schools of excellence. So I think that when a school has prepared a student and the student has got good results, it is not fair to allow the students to move out of the school to another school. What we intend to do is to ensure that all schools manage to grow and become high-demand schools and not feed only few high-demand schools.
Next question.
B648.
Mr. Speaker, sir, an e-learning platform is a tool that creates an interactive and virtual system for teaching and learning. It allows the creation of educational contents and permits interaction between students and educators. Presently, the e-learning is being carried out on two fronts. Firstly, lower secondary students, grades 7 to 9, have access to educational resources available within the Student Support Portal that has been set up by my ministry in collaboration with the National Council of Educational Research and Training of India. The Student Support Portal is a comprehensive resource that is comparable to India's e-Pathshala platform that enables students to learn at their own pace and place. And secondly, classes are conducted online for upper secondary students, grades 10 to 13, using Microsoft Teams. About 40,000 students and 8,500 educators have been provided with logins for Microsoft Teams for educators to connect online with their students to ensure continuity in learning during the confinement. To enable this endeavor to be sustained, my ministry has renewed and upgraded some 100,000 Microsoft licenses with more features that are available under the Office 365 ecosystem. This modular and flexible platform is a comprehensive cloud-based solution that can be installed in any of the devices that educators and students own and can then be used both in schools and at home. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to inform the House that a national e-learning platform is also on the way. All the features I have mentioned will become an integral part of that platform, which will be further enhanced phase-wise, allowing monitoring of the virtual classes as well as assessment. The e-learning transition is being reinforced with the advent of a pilot project known as the virtual classroom, which will be implemented in grade 7 in the first instance to support blended mode of teaching and learning, and internet connectivity will be enhanced in these schools.
Whether we are ready to switch to online teaching, you referred to e-Pathshala in India, and learning in case schools have to be closed down at any point in time for one reason or the other.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this is presently being done. In fact, I've just mentioned that we already have 40,000 students who've got logins and 8,500 educators who have also got logins, and online classes can be held using Microsoft Teams and a number of other links also through, Zoom and other facilities.
Regarding primary school students, Honorable Minister, you know, like me, that tablets are kept at school.
Address the chair, not you, Minister.
Thank
you,
you.
Minister. Address the chair.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, sir, the tablets are kept at school instead of allowing those students to take the tablets home. Because we're talking of online education, will the Honorable Minister consider allowing students to take these tablets home?
This is not the policy of the ministry, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Boulel. Your question. Honorable Fouquion.
Votre question. Votre question.
So we move on to Honorable Amiamia.
PQB 650.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to refer the honourable member to the reply I made to the private notice question at our sitting of 17 June 2021 on the subject. On 15 June 2021, the State Trading Corporation received a legal claim for a sum of around 5.68 billion rupees, representing damages, legal and arbitration costs incurred before the Singapore International Arbitration Centre and interest. However, this amount excludes the legal costs associated with the hearing of the review before the Supreme Court of Mauritius and the appeal before the Privy Council, which are not yet known. I am informed by the STC that payment to Betamax Limited has been effected on the 22nd of June this year.
Mr. Speaker, am I to understand that the claims for the case at Privy Council and in the Supreme Court of Mauritius has not yet been received by the ministry and not yet been paid?
This is what I have been informed, Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes, indeed, we have not received any claim as such, as to date.
I mean, claim from Betamax.
Yes, in terms of legal cost.
Figures for the legal cost, what government, what the state have incurred for the Privy Council. I mean, all the associated costs traveling to the Privy Council and paying the councils there in UK.
Mr. Speaker, I've just answered. We are still awaiting the cost incurred at the Supreme Court and the appeal before the Privy Council.
Yes, I understand the Honourable Minister saying that the costs are still being taxed. So that will be the costs which Betamax will have to pay in total. The question, Honourable Amiamia, is very specific. As at today, STC has paid its own lawyers. So you don't need to wait for the Privy Council to give you a tax cost to be able to tell the House today how much money has the STC paid to its own lawyers for arbitration, Supreme Court and Privy Council. So this is the question.
But unfortunately, I don't have the information requested for at the moment. I shall undertake to table same.
You already replied to the question? No. I would give Honorable Ganga Prasad his last question.
B649.
Monsieur le Président, la création d'une Centralized Digital Land Bank sous l'égide de Landscope Mauritius pour répertorier les terres agricoles gouvernementales et privées a été annoncée dans le discours du budget 2020-2021. Cette initiative s'intègre dans le cadre du National Agri-Food Development Programme du gouvernement. Au mois de septembre 2020, Landscope Mauritius a nommé un consultant pour développer un Electronic Data Management System pour gérer la Land Bank. Le système a été achevé et est opérationnel depuis le 2 février 2021. Il est conçu pour afficher graphiquement chaque parcelle de terre de la Land Bank. Il rend également compte des détails de chaque parcelle de terre, y compris les informations obtenues concernant les caractéristiques du sol, la pluviométrie moyenne et l'aptitude de la terre à des cultures spécifiques. Depuis le début du projet, Landscope Mauritius a travaillé en étroite collaboration avec le ministère de l'Agro-Industrie et de la Sécurité alimentaire, la Mauritius Cane Industry Authority, le Food and Agricultural Research and Extension Institute et le Sugar Insurance Fund Board pour identifier les terres agricoles gouvernementales et privées susceptibles d'être intégrées dans la Land Bank. Un premier ensemble de 161 lots de terrains agricoles de l'État, totalisant une superficie de quelques 321 arpents, a été identifié. Les lots de terrain ont été loués à Landscope Mauritius Limited par le ministère de l'Agro-Industrie et de la Sécurité alimentaire le 18 janvier 2021 pour une période initiale de 10 ans. 70 de ces lots, pour une superficie totale de 139 arpents, sont situés dans le district de Plaine-William. 77 autres lots, pour une superficie totale de 153 arpents, sont situés dans le district de Moka. Il y a également 14 lots de terrain pour une superficie totale de 28,5 arpents dans le district de Grand Port. La première phase de la Land Bank a été officiellement lancée le mardi 2 février 2021. À partir de cette date, toute personne souhaitant soumettre une demande de location d'une parcelle disponible de la banque foncière pour la culture devait le faire en ligne via l'Electronic Data Management System développé par la Land Bank. Landscope Mauritius Limited sous-louera les terres aux petits planteurs pour une période initiale n'excédant pas 10 ans et le loyer annuel a été fixé à un montant nominal de 5 000 roupies par an. Au 22 février 2021, un total de 1016 demandes a été reçu pour les 161 parcelles de terrain. Monsieur le Président, un comité d'évaluation indépendant a été mis en place pour évaluer les demandes reçues. Ce comité est composé de 2 représentants du ministère de l'Agro-Industrie et de la Sécurité alimentaire, un représentant du ministère des Finances, de la Planification économique et du Développement, un représentant de la Development Bank of Mauritius Limited, un représentant de la Landscope Mauritius Limited et une personne indépendante ayant de solides connaissances en agriculture. Le comité a tenu plusieurs réunions. Ces travaux ont toutefois été ralentis par le confinement national imposé pour lutter contre la pandémie de la COVID-19. À ce jour, un premier lot de 17 demandeurs a été recommandé. Une lettre d'intention a été délivrée en conséquence par Landscope Mauritius Limited à chaque candidat. J'ai été informé qu'un deuxième lot de terres agricoles d'État d'une superficie totale de 175 arpents sera loué à Landscope Mauritius Limited en juillet 2021 pour être sous-loué à des petits planteurs. Dans la deuxième phase du projet de la Land Bank, Landscope Mauritius Limited lancera un appel à manifestation d'intérêt pour rechercher les propriétaires privés intéressés à louer des terres à Landscope pour une période de 10 ans. Ces parcelles supplémentaires seront incorporées dans la Land Bank pour être sous-louées aux planteurs. Merci.
Speaker, sir, will the Honourable Minister inform the House how many acres of private agricultural lands have been acquired so far by the Landscope Mauritius Limited with the support of SIC?
Monsieur le Président, je n'ai pas ces informations concernant les terrains privés. Je vais demander des informations auprès de Landscope et je déposerai à la Chambre.
Mr. Speaker, sir, will the Honourable Minister tell us what incentives will be given to these small planters because they face a lot of problems regarding access to the land, quality of land, theft, etc.
Ce projet a été mis en place, Monsieur le Président, pour essayer d'aider les petits planteurs, d'où une tarification peu élevée concernant la location de ces terres. Nous sommes en train de travailler avec le ministère de l'Agriculture et aussi avec d'autres ministères pour voir comment aider encore plus les petits planteurs. Mais ce n'est pas que pour ceux qui vont bénéficier de ces terres avec la Land Bank.
On the criteria that have been laid down for the beneficiaries of the land, are they going to be on a first-come, first-served basis? How is it going to be distributed?
Il y a un comité indépendant qui a été mis en place. J'ai déjà donné la liste des participants. Ils travaillent dessus. En général, ce n'est pas first come, first serve. C'est une série de critères qui sont qui sont établis et je déposerai à la Chambre cette série de critères pour l'évaluation.
Honorable Bagwan, you lift your hand.
Waiting for you. Thank you. Est-ce que je peux demander au ministre ce qu'il peut nous dire au niveau du board de l'ENSCO au moment où cette première batch a été approuvée? La composition du board, qui sont les membres du board qui ont siégé à ce comité pour donner l'approval de cette première batch?
Monsieur le Président, c'est du domaine public, la composition de ce board, mais je le ferai déposer par plaisir à l'honorable membre, la composition de ce board. Je ne l'ai pas avec moi là pour tous les membres, donc je connais, donc je vais déposer, je crois que j'avais déjà déposé, mais ce n'est pas un problème, on va déposer, oui, at the time it has approved, la composition.
Last question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Am I to understand that this responsibility has been entrusted to Lenscope because the Ministry of Agro-Industry has not been able to live up to the expectation of planters?
Non, Monsieur le Président, c'est un projet qui a été travaillé avec Lenscope pendant la préparation du budget 2020-2021 et surtout avec le ministère de l'Agriculture. Donc on a mis en place un land bank au niveau de Lenscope pour pouvoir diffuser. C'est le travail de cette institution de travailler avec les petits planteurs. Ce n'est pas du tout par rapport aux commentaires qu'a fait l'ancien leader de l'opposition. Merci.
The table has been advised that PQ B690, B695, and B696 have been withdrawn. We move to the next question.
Yes, B651.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the STC that the total quantum of funds collected on the retail price of mogas and gas oil and contributed to the COVID-19 Solidarity Fund since November 2020 to date is 527,842,920 rupees for both mogas and gas oil. The item contribution to COVID-19 Solidarity Fund of 4 rupees per litre was introduced in April 2020 in the price structure of mogas and gas oil in order to meet the expenses in connection with COVID-19 pandemic. This quantum was subsequently reduced to 1 rupee per litre in December 2020. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards to the last part of the question, I wish to remind the honourable member that Mauritius is still COVID-19 affected, and the question of till when the amount collected on this item will be contributed to COVID-19 Solidarity Fund remains a policy decision for government to take at the appropriate time in light of the evolution of COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. This COVID Solidarity Fund was introduced last year, and mogas and gas oil was taxed to finance this fund, if I can say it like this. And it was introduced in April and then reduced in December. But recently, government introduced 2 rupees per litre plus VAT again on mogas and oil. So therefore, can I ask the Honourable Minister, in order to reduce the burden on consumers, does he think that it's right to say that we have to remove the tax that has been imposed last year to finance the Solidarity Fund?
Mr. Speaker, sir, this tax was a result of a policy decision of the government, and I cannot question same, so I'll leave it to the appreciation of the honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, can the honourable minister at least tell us, out of these millions of rupees transferred from STC to the COVID-19 Solidarity Fund, what has been the amount of money spent last year by the COVID-19 Solidarity Fund out of these millions have been transferred to it?
Mr. Speaker, sir, if the honourable member come with a specific question and addressed to the minister concerned, I'm sure answer will be given.
Next question.
Yes, B652.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the list of the office spaces rented by government, ministries, government departments, as well as other information requested by the honourable member are being compiled and will be laid in the Library of the National Assembly.
I understand the reply of the Honourable Minister because it's a very lengthy reply. The first time I asked this PQ dates back to April 2011, and at that time the then Minister of Infrastructure, Honourable Bechu, gave the same reply, but he did give the reply after, and it was an amount of 500 million rupees that was rented by government through spaces. So therefore, can I ask the Honourable Minister, what is the time frame are we looking for to have this reply?
As soon as possible. So we are verifying the information, and I almost have it ready, in fact, I must say, but I have noticed some information missing, so I want my officers to look into carefully. So I don't want to give an approximate reply to your question, Honourable Member. You will appreciate.
Next question.
B653.
Monsieur le Président, je souhaite informer la Chambre qu'afin de garantir la soumission en temps voulu des états financiers au National Audit Office par les organismes statutaires, les fonds spéciaux et autres organismes opérant sous l'égide de mon ministère, le 16 février de cette année, mon ministère a publié une circulaire à l'intention de tous les ministères et départements, circulaire numéro 1 de 2021, sur la soumission tardive des états financiers par les organismes statutaires au National Audit Office. Le circulaire prévoit que les officiers en charge de la supervision et de la comptabilité doivent, premièrement, s'assurer que les organismes statutaires qui relèvent de leurs compétences soumettent leur état financier dans les délais et les exigences réglementaires. Deuxièmement, d'informer les officiers siégeant au conseil d'administration d'un organisme statutaire afin qu'il s'assure que l'organisme statutaire prépare son rapport annuel selon les normes requises et le soumette au directeur de l'audit dans les délais légaux. Troisièmement, de s'assurer du suivi des mesures disciplinaires prises par le conseil d'administration d'un organisme statutaire relevant de sa compétence en cas de non-respect de la présentation des estimations annuelles et du rapport annuel, conformément à l'article 7A2 de la Statutory Bodies Account and Audit Act. Et quatrièmement, veiller à ce que les organismes statutaires, les autorités locales, les fonds spéciaux et les autres organismes qui soumettent des états financiers au National Audit Office respectent la nouvelle approche en matière de présentation des états financiers dans les délais impartis. À la suite de la publication de la circulaire numéro 1 de 2021, mon ministère a adressé une lettre à tous les organismes relevant de sa compétence afin qu'ils se conforment aux instructions qu'elle contient. Selon le rapport 2019-2020 du National Audit Office, les entités suivantes relevant de mon ministère n'ont pas encore soumis leurs états financiers au National Audit Office. La Gambling Regulatory Authority pour les exercices 2018-2019, 2019-2020, le COVID-19 Project Development Fund pour la période du 28 avril au 30 juin 2020 et le National Resilience Fund pour les exercices 2018-2019 et 2019-2020. Il a été porté à mon attention que pour le Gambling Regulatory Authority, en juillet 2020, le National Audit Office a recommandé que la GRA consolide les états financiers de l'autorité et de la Responsible Gambling and Capacity Building Fund en un seul document avant de le soumettre au National Audit Office. Après plusieurs discussions avec toutes les parties prenantes concernées, y compris son conseiller juridique, l'approbation du conseil d'administration de la GRA a été obtenue le 26 janvier 2021 pour que les états financiers de l'autorité et du fonds soient ainsi consolidés. Il convient de noter que la soumission tardive est en grande partie due à la décision concernant la consolidation des états financiers. En conséquence, la GRA a déjà préparé ses états financiers consolidés pour l'exercice 2018-2019. Le document sera soumis à l'approbation de son conseil d'administration prochainement, avant d'être soumis au National Audit Office. En ce qui concerne les exercices financiers consolidés pour l'exercice 2019-2020, ils sont en cours de finalisation et seront soumis à l'approbation du conseil d'administration dès que possible. Pour ce qui est du COVID-19 Project Development Fund, ce fonds a été mis en place en avril 2020. Cependant, étant donné qu'il n'est rentré en opération qu'à partir de juillet 2020, il n'y a pas d'état financier qui soit dû pour la période allant d'avril 2020 à juin 2020. Pour ce qui est du National Residence Fund, les états financiers du National Residence Fund pour l'année financière s'étant clôturés au 30 juin 2019 ont été soumis au National Audit Office le 18 juin 2021. Les états financiers du National Residence Fund pour l'année s'étant achevés le 30 juin 2020 sont en cours de préparation par le comptable du fonds. Ils seront soumis au National Audit Office avant le 30 juillet 2021. Enfin, le Management Committee du National Residence Fund a déjà pris les mesures correctives pour éviter tout retard futur dans la soumission des comptes et pour garantir le respect de ses obligations légales. Les états financiers pour l'exercice clos au 30 juin 2021 devraient donc être soumis dans le délai légal imparti. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I don't understand why the Honourable Minister took the example of GRA and also COVID Fund and National Resilience Fund, because in the report of the Director of Audit, if I may refer to this document, this issue has been severely criticized by the Director of Audit. And it's not the first year. This has been like it for so many years. And just to give briefly two figures, there are 21 financial statements in respect of 5 special funds that were already certified by the National Audit Office, but not laid to the National Assembly. And also, please, Mr. Speaker, let me state this figure. There are, in some cases, financial statements for more than 15 years that has not been audited. And we are talking about public funds. So my question to the Honourable Minister, does he think that it's not acceptable to send only circulars? Because every year there is this circular, and there is no change in the state of affairs.
Monsieur le Président, comme je l'ai souligné dans ma réponse, nous travaillons pour améliorer l'efficacité et aussi l'efficience de ces organismes. Donc, nous travaillons à travers les circulaires. Et nous sommes en train de travailler pour qu'au niveau de mon ministère, tous les rapports soient disponibles avant la date fixée. Donc, c'est là ce qu'on est en train de faire. On va essayer de travailler encore plus pour qu'il n'y ait plus de retard dans la soumission de ces rapports. C'est ce que nous pouvons dire ici, parce que nous travaillons en permanence avec les circulaires, et jusqu'à présent, les circulaires sortant du ministère des Finances font foi. Merci.
Honourable Tim.
B65.
Yes, sure.
No, I have only asked one supplementary.
No, listen, there's the rule of questions, and I already said at the beginning, Honourable Utim. Honourable
B654.
Are you ready?
Monsieur le Président.
I can hear some comments and keep the comments for yourself. You should respect the chair. You know what you're doing, and you know what I am doing. Please.
Monsieur le Président, le Mauritius Africa Fund Limited a été constitué le 17 février 2014 en tant que Public Company Limited by Shares le gouvernement étant l'unique actionnaire de la société. Le mandat initial du fonds comprenait la participation aux fonds propres d'entreprises mauriciennes investissant dans les projets viables sur le continent africain, à hauteur de 10% maximum de leurs fonds propres. Le Mauritius Africa Fund m'a informé qu'en août 2014, il a invité par le biais d'annonces publiques les entreprises mauriciennes à manifester leur intérêt à accéder au soutien et aux services du fonds pour investir dans des projets en Afrique. 4 entreprises ont répondu à l'expression d'intérêt, mais n'ont pas fait de demande officielle de financement. En ce qui concerne les parties A et B de la question, aucun fonds n'a donc été déboursé pour l'une de ces 4 entreprises. Monsieur le Président, la Chambre a été informée à plusieurs reprises que depuis début 2015, le gouvernement a revu le mandat du Mauritius Africa Fund en vue d'élargir la zone économique de Maurice et d'avoir un impact plus important sur la facilitation des investissements du secteur privé mauricien en Afrique. Dans le cadre de son nouveau mandat, le Mauritius Africa Fund s'est concentré sur le développement d'infrastructures commerciales telles que les zones économiques spéciales dans les pays africains sélectionnés dans un cadre de gouvernement à gouvernement. Dans l'exécution de ce nouveau mandat, le Mauritius Africa Fund travaille actuellement sur le développement de zones, à savoir le Sénégal, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Ghana, Madagascar et le Kenya. Au Sénégal, le Mauritius Africa Fund détient 51% des parts de la Société des infrastructures d'affaires atlantiques, constituée au Sénégal en joint venture avec le Fonds souverain d'investissement stratégique, le Fonds souverain du Sénégal, par le biais de partenaires publics-privés et gérera à terme les 53 hectares du parc industriel de Diamniadio, près de Dakar. En Côte d'Ivoire, le Mauritius Africa Fund a négocié avec succès un accès préférentiel pour les entreprises mauriciennes afin qu'elles investissent dans la construction d'une cybertour de deux tours administratives, d'un hôtel d'affaires et d'un parc aquatique au sein du Technology Park de Grand Bassam. Au Ghana, le Mauritius Africa Fund détiendra 60% du capital social de Ghana Smart City Limited, une coentreprise avec le gouvernement ghanéen. Le projet consistera en la construction d'un Technology and Research Hub au sein de l'University of Ghana à Central Accra au cours d'une première phase, suivie du développement d'un Technology and Business Park à Dawa au cours d'une seconde phase. À Madagascar, le gouvernement malgache a identifié 80 hectares de terrain pour que le Mauritius Africa Fund développe conjointement une Textile City à Moramanga, située le long du principal corridor économique reliant la capitale au port de Toamasina. En outre, les négociations sont en cours entre le gouvernement de Maurice et le gouvernement du Kenya pour le développement d'un centre industriel à Nabaisha. Monsieur le Président, voilà tout pour ma réponse. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Minister replied stating verbatim what the Honourable Prime Minister had stated in answer to a PQ 2 years ago, on the 7th of May 2019. Exactly the same words, except translated in French. So do I take it that since May 2019 till date, there hasn't been any new project or completion of those 5 projects that was already announced 2 years ago?
Monsieur le Président, peut-être l'honorable membre n'est pas au courant, mais je tiendrai quand même à informer l'honorable membre que depuis, on est entré dans une pandémie, que chaque projet d'infrastructure, ça prend des années pour le développer. En général, un projet d'infrastructure ne se fait pas en une journée. Ça prend des années pour pouvoir développer un projet d'infrastructure ou un projet d'investissement. Parfois, des dizaines d'années pour pouvoir développer ce genre de projet, surtout quand vous avez des accords de gouvernement à gouvernement. Et entre-temps, malheureusement, on a été quand même sérieusement touché par la pandémie. Et que ce soit localement ou au niveau de l'Afrique, on y est toujours et c'est le genre d'événement qui freine encore plus le développement de ce genre de projet parce qu'on n'a pas de liaison aérienne, nous ne pouvons pas nous rendre sur place, nous ne pouvons pas nécessairement avoir les contacts privilégiés avec les opérateurs, donc c'est sûr que ça retarde les projets et c'est sûr qu'il y a eu du retard dans ces projets et qu'au fur et à mesure que nous sommes en train de sortir de cette pandémie, nous allons reprendre les opérations concernant le Mauritius Africa Fund. Merci.
In his budget speech, the Honourable Minister of Finance at page 138 announced, and I quote, that MIC has earmarked 10 billion rupees to invest in African projects, including SEZ project under the G2G framework, which is exactly what he has just mentioned is being done by the Africa Mauritius Fund. So may I know from the Honourable Minister of Finance whether there is not an overlapping, because I know MIC also didn't spend 1 cent that was earmarked for African project last year.
Monsieur le Président, ce projet est un projet de la MIC qui devait passer par le Mauritius Africa Fund pour investir en Afrique. Ce projet, c'est quoi? C'est comme dans beaucoup de pays où on utilise un fonds d'investissement local pour développer le secteur privé local à l'étranger. C'est-à-dire, demain, s'il y a un projet d'infrastructure dans un des pays africains où il y a besoin de fonds, on utilisera les fonds à Maurice pour développer ce projet, mais en contrepartie, ils doivent utiliser le secteur privé mauricien pour développer le projet sur le territoire africain. Merci.
The Honourable Minister of Finance agree with me that if Africa Mauritius Fund was serious about what they are doing, first of all, they would have updated that website. Secondly, they would have employees, because as far as I'm concerned, there's only one staff, an executive director today working at Africa Mauritius Fund, and surely with one person, you would not be able to invest 500 millions in 5 different countries.
Monsieur le Président, le Mauritius Africa Fund s'appuie sur le staff de l'IDB. Et comme je l'ai dit, c'est un projet de la MIC d'investir sur l'Afrique. Mais ils ne vont pas aller en Afrique, ils utilisent l'institution qui est le Mauritius Africa Fund à travers IDB pour faire ces investissements sur le continent africain. Mais c'est un projet, encore une fois, et comme tout projet, ça va prendre du temps et surtout en pleine pandémie. Merci.
I will suspend the sitting for 1 hour.